Around my family's Thanksgiving table, I might as well be a ghost. I'm Ava, the one in finance, the daughter who gets seated at the forgotten end, tasked with keeping the dinner rolls in circulation. My brother Leo and my sister Sophie are the main attractions. They're the ones with the gravitational pull, the ones who believe the universe owes them everything, served on one of my mother's heirloom porcelain plates. This Thanksgiving, my father got to his feet. He wasn't raising a glass for a toast. He was holding the electric carving knife, which had just whirred into silence. The quiet that followed was abrupt and suffocating. Before we begin, my father announced, "I have some news." Leo and Sophie leaned in, their expressions a mix of curiosity and avarice. They could smell an opportunity. "We've made the decision to sell Sterling Woods." My siblings' faces ignited. They envisioned luxury cars, new ventures, and lives of even greater ease. They saw their inheritance materializing. Then my father's gaze locked onto them, his voice slicing through the room with the precision of a freshly sharpened blade. "And neither of you is part of the transaction." The heir apparents were suddenly dethroned. Leo's grin froze, then shattered. Sophie looked as though she'd been struck. Their world of effortless privilege was going up in flames. But I just sat there, completely motionless. I watched them. I watched every single one of them. Because I was holding a secret, I knew exactly who was acquiring the company. Before we get into the details, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. The silence was the most oppressive part. It was a dense, frigid silence, thick with the aroma of roasted turkey and my mother's cloying perfume. The dining room, always uncomfortably formal, suddenly felt like a museum display, a diorama called "The Implosion of a Family." I glanced down at my plate. The rich red cranberry sauce was bleeding into the pristine white of the mashed potatoes. Sterling Woods wasn't just a business, it was the unspoken fifth guest at our table. It was the specter that haunted every hallway. It was the entire reason we had this cavernous cold house and this massive ornate dining table. My father, Arthur Sterling, had built it from absolutely nothing. He began with a single-use truck, a borrowed chainsaw, and a parcel of land nobody else had any interest in. He pulled 20-hour days. He missed birthdays. He missed the entirety of my childhood. The company was his firstborn, his true offspring. We were just the supporting cast. Sterling Woods was our legacy. That was the word my father cherished. Legacy. He adored that word. It sounded as solid and dependable as the timber he sold. It was his whole world. For us, it meant something else entirely. To my brother Leo, it was a personal ATM. Leo is 39, but he carries himself like he's 21. He resides in Austin, in a high-rise glass condo that costs more per month than my first year's salary. He develops apps. That's his line. "I'm in tech, Ava. You wouldn't get it. It's all about disruption." I recall him coming home about 5 years back, brimming with grandiose ideas. He wanted to optimize the lumber yard. He strolled into my father's time-worn wood-paneled office in a pair of $500 sneakers and informed my father that paper ledgers were obsolete. He said, "Dad, we need to establish a synergistic workflow. We'll track the timber with RFID tags. We'll develop an app." My father just stared at him. My father's foreman, Frank, a man who'd been with the company for 3 decades, was standing in the room. Frank had a face like a worn-out catcher's mitt. Leo didn't even acknowledge him. My father said, "Son, this is a lumber yard. We cut trees. We sell lumber. The synergistic flow is the 18-wheeler driving out the front gate. Go back to your apps." Leo was furious. He left the very next day. He told me the company was a fossil. He said, I'm embarrassed this is where I come from. It's so analog. He never stepped foot in the lumber yard again, but now, hearing the word sell, he looked like he'd been physically wounded. His legacy was being stripped away. His bank was about to be permanently closed. And then there was my sister, Sophie. She's 35. Sophie doesn't see a bank. She sees a brand. She runs a tiny, hyper-expensive design boutique in Miami. She curates living spaces. She sells plain white ceramic vases for $600. She once suggested to my father that he should rebrand Sterling Woods. "The logo is just so aggressive, Daddy," she'd commented over brunch one Sunday. "It's all dark green and brown. We could do something minimalist, maybe just the letters SW, in a very clean, sleek font. It would be so much more chic." My father had just grunted and continued reading the newspaper. To Sophie, the company was a quaint, rustic anecdote she could deploy at cocktail parties. It was her heritage. It lent her a certain backstory. She had absolutely no clue how the business actually functioned. She couldn't tell the difference between spruce and maple, but she felt utterly entitled to it. It was hers by birthright. Both of them, Leo and Sophie, were the chosen ones. Leo was the son, the visionary. Sophie was the daughter, the artist. They commanded attention. They were loud. They consumed all the oxygen in any room they entered. And then there was me. I'm 32. I'm the quiet one, the background character. I am Ava, the finance girl. When I was 16, I tried to get a summer job at the company. Not as a designer, not as an app developer. I wanted to learn the accounting. I wanted to understand the financial statements. Numbers have always made sense to me. They're logical. They don't have ulterior motives. My father discovered me in the back office one afternoon, poring over the ledgers. He didn't smile. He placed a heavy hand on my shoulder and said, "Ava, this is no place for you. It's rough. It's messy. Why don't you go help your mother plan her summer garden party?" I wasn't the son. I wasn't the pretty one. I was just the other one. He paid for Leo's 6-figure coding program. He co-signed the loan for Sophie's first boutique. When I went to college, I earned a full academic scholarship. I juggled 2 jobs to afford my textbooks and rent. After I graduated, I landed a position at a small investment firm in Denver. I started at the very bottom. I endured 100-hour work weeks. I absorbed everything I possibly could. I saved every single dollar. They never once asked about my career. When I came home for holidays, they'd ask, "Are you seeing anyone?" Or, "Your apartment is nice, dear." They had no concept of what I actually did. They weren't interested. I was the invisible daughter at the far end of the table. But I was the only one who had ever truly wanted the company. I was the only one who bothered to understand it. I was the only one who loved the smell of fresh-cut wood and the sound of the big rigs rumbling out at dawn. I was the only one who saw it for what it truly was. Not an ATM, not a brand, but a legacy, my father's legacy. I lifted my gaze from my plate. Leo and Sophie were still motionless. They were waiting. They had registered the word sell. They had registered "you're out." But they were waiting for the other shoe to drop. They were waiting for my father to say, "And here's the multi-million-dollar trust fund I've established for you instead." They had no comprehension of what was truly happening. They had always expected to inherit. They had no idea that I, the quiet one, the invisible one, was the only one who had actually earned it. Nobody expected me to utter a word. I just sat there and I watched the foundations of their perfect, effortless world begin to splinter. The first sound was a piece of silverware, Leo's fork. It struck his plate with a loud, sharp clatter that sliced right through the silence. He shot up from his chair so quickly it screeched against the polished hardwood floor. His face was flushed, not just with embarrassment. It was a deep, throbbing, furious red. "What did you just say?" he demanded. He wasn't speaking to our father. He was addressing the entire room, the universe itself. "You can't be serious," he said, his voice escalating. "You can't sell. You can't." My father, Arthur, just observed him. He remained standing, the now useless carving knife still in his hand. He looked placid. He looked weary. "Sit down, Leo," my father said. His voice was low, but it was the tone he used at the mill. The tone that clearly meant, "I will not repeat myself. No, I will not sit down." Leo was now pacing, a caged animal, in the small space between the dining table and the grand fireplace. "This is our legacy. This is our name. You built it for us. You can't just torch it. You can't sell our birthright to some corporate vulture." Birthright. The word hung in the air, grotesque and heavy. I watched my brother, this 39-year-old man, have a full-blown tantrum. Birthright. I recalled all the times he'd referred to the company as Dad's dusty old lumber yard. I remembered him laughing at me for wanting to work there. "Why would you ever want to be stuck in that backwater town, Ava?" he'd said. "Come to Austin. I'll get you a job doing, I don't know, something." He never gave a damn about the legacy. He only cared about the money. My father finally spoke. His voice was still calm, but it had an edge like a new saw blade. "Your birthright, Leo," he said. "Let's talk about that. You're 39 years old. You've been in Texas for 16 years. In all that time, how many times did you come back to learn the business? Not for a holiday, not for a handout. How many times did you come here to work?" Leo stopped his pacing. He had no reply. "You built apps," my father continued, ticking off points on his fingers. "You chased venture capital. You talked about disruption. This company, this tangible company, with real trucks and real lumber and 70 real employees. This company bored you. You said it yourself. That's not," Leo stammered. "Don't lie, Leo. Not today. Not at this table." Leo's face crumbled. He was supposed to be the genius. But my father had just dismantled him with simple, undeniable facts. That's when Sophie began. Her reaction wasn't anger. It was tears. Sophie's tears were legendary. They were her greatest tool. They had gotten her out of traffic violations, failed exams, and messy breakups. She covered her face with her hands and her shoulders began to heave. "Daddy, how could you?" she whispered. The sound was engineered to shatter a heart. "How could you do this to us?" She looked up, her eyes wide and shimmering. She was stunning when she cried. She was well aware of it. "You're selling it to strangers?" she said, her voice trembling. "People who don't care about the family? People who will just gut it and sell it for parts? What about us? What about Mom? You're throwing us away." I watched her and felt a profound emptiness. It was like watching a film I'd seen 100 times. I remembered when Sophie was 17. She'd borrowed our mother's car without permission and smashed it into a neighbor's fence. She cried. My father bought her a brand new convertible for her 18th birthday. 2 weeks later, I was 10 minutes late for my curfew. I didn't receive a lecture on responsibility. I received a lecture on disrespecting the family. I was grounded for a month. Sophie's tears were a weapon, and she was aiming them directly at my father's heart. But something was different this time. My father looked at her. He looked sorrowful, but he didn't look like he was wavering. "Sophie, honey," he said, his voice softening for her. "It always did. You curate spaces. You're a designer. That's your world. You live in a beautiful condo in the city. You have never Not one single time. Ask me about our profit and loss statements. You've never met our foreman, Frank, who has been with me for 30 years. You don't know the names of the men who work for me. You don't know the business. You only know the idea of it. Sophie's tears ceased. Her eyes narrowed. The Daddy's Girl performance had failed. She was just as furious as Leo. "So that's it?" Leo said, his voice low and threatening. "You're just writing us off? After all all you what, Leo?" my father asked. "All you expected?" He drew a deep breath. This was it. He was finished with them. "I am selling to a firm that will protect what I built," my father said, his voice final. "They're a group called Apex Ventures. They made an offer I couldn't refuse." He paused. He looked at my mother, then at Leo, then at Sophie. $150 million. The oxygen vanished from the room. It was as if a bomb had detonated, but the explosion was silent. 150 million. Leo's mouth hung open. He looked utterly vacant, just blank and stunned. Sophie's face, which had been so perfectly composed in its grief, was now perfectly frozen in shock. Her tears had evaporated instantly. My mother, Eleanor, who had been silent all this time, let out a tiny, high-pitched gasp. $150 million. The number just hovered there. The legacy was gone. The family was gone. All that remained was that number. It was so colossal, it obliterated everything else. The outrage at losing the company had vanished. It was replaced by a new, frantic, desperate hunger, the hunger to get a piece of that money. I just sat there. I took a sip of my water. The number didn't surprise me. After all, I was the one who had signed the offer letter. The number, $150 million, just floated in the center of the dining room. It felt more real than the turkey on the table. It was more significant than the family portraits on the wall. It was everything. My mother's hand was at her throat, and she was staring at my father as if he were a complete stranger. Leo was the first to recover. I could practically see the gears turning in his head. The genius app developer was running the numbers, $150 million. He was calculating his cut. The anger was gone. The sanctimony about legacy was gone. All that was left was raw, naked greed. It was hideous. "Dad," he said, and his voice was suddenly transformed. It was unsteady, but he was attempting to sound constructive. He was trying to be the son again. "Dad, okay, $150 million. Wow, that's a phenomenal number. That's incredible. So," he licked his lips, "so you'll put the majority of that into a trust, right? For us? For the family? I mean, what's the strategy? We can bring in my wealth manager. He's excellent. We can protect the assets." He was already spending it. In his mind, he had a new sports car, a new startup, a new life. Sophie immediately jumped in. Her face was pale, but her eyes were gleaming. "Yes, Daddy, we can help you manage it. It's a lot. It's too much for you and Mom to handle on your own. We're a family. We can invest it together. Leo knows the tech sector, and I know all about luxury property and real estate. We can build something new together." I almost laughed out loud. It was so pathetic. We can build something new. They had never built a single thing. They had only ever taken. I thought about my own life. I thought about the cramped, windowless office I had in my first job. I thought about eating instant noodles for dinner so I could save money for my first small investment. I remembered my 25th birthday with perfect, painful clarity. I was at the firm. I was studying for my CFA exams, a grueling series of tests that most people fail. I was working 80 hours a week and studying all weekend. Leo called me. He didn't wish me a happy birthday. He said, "Ava, I need to borrow $25,000. $25,000, I had said. "Leo, that's..." I don't have that kind of money." "Oh, right," he'd laughed. "Your little finance job. Whatever. I'll just ask Dad. He'll give it to me." And he did. My father gave him $25,000 for a sure-thing startup that evaporated in 6 months. I remembered Sophie a year later. She'd forgotten to invite me on a trip to Italy with her friends. My father looked at Leo. He looked at Sophie. He shook his head slowly. "A trust?" he said, his voice low. "Manage it. Invest it." He set the carving knife down on the table. "I am going to leave you." Exactly what my father left me. Leo and Sophie looked baffled. Our grandfather had passed away when they were young. They only remembered him as a quiet old man who smelled of pipe tobacco. My father said, left me nothing. He left me a worn-out wrench. He left me a firm handshake. And he left me a piece of advice. He said, "Arthur, don't ever expect a handout. If you want something, you go out and you build it." He looked directly at Leo. "I built this company with my own 2 hands. I worked 20-hour days while you were at soccer practice. I missed your school concerts because I was at the mill making payroll so 70 men could feed their families." His voice was gaining strength. "You want to build something of your own, Leo? Then go build it. You want an app? Go find investors. But you are not getting the capital from me." He turned to Sophie. "You want a design empire, Sophie. Go find clients. But you are not building it with my money." He looked at both of them. His children. His failures. "You are not children anymore. You are adults. You will not receive a single dime from this sale. Your mother and I are going to retire. We are going to travel. The rest? Well, the rest is our business." He delivered the line I would never forget. "I'll leave you what my father left me, the chance to build something for yourselves." The shock in the room was absolute. This wasn't the shock of the sale. This was the shock of being disinherited. This was the ultimate betrayal in their eyes. Sophie's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Then she began to sob. Not her performative, pretty tears. These were real. They were ugly, heaving, horrible sounds. She was mourning the new life that had just been snatched away. Leo was as white as a sheet. He was trembling. "You can't," he whispered. "You can't. You can't do this. We'll fight this. We'll sue you. We'll sue you for our inheritance." My father almost smiled. It was a cold, sorrowful smile. "Sue me for what, Leo? For selling my own company? For using my own money? Go ahead. Good luck with that." Leo looked around the room, desperate, as if searching for a weapon. My mother was whispering, "Arthur, Arthur, please. They're your children." My father paid her no mind. He looked at his son and his daughter, his 2 great disappointments, and he was finally truly done with them. I watched them disintegrate. I watched their entitled faces fall apart. They looked exactly like what they were, spoiled children who had just been told no for the very first time. And for the first time, I felt no pity. I felt nothing at all, only a deep understanding. I understood my father. He was a builder, and he saw his children as his 2 most broken, failed projects. And I understood myself. I was the one he had pushed away. I was the one who had gone out and built a life of my own, in a different city, in the shadows. They were all looking at each other now, screaming and crying. They had forgotten I was even in the room. My father was staring at the floor. My siblings looked utterly betrayed. For once, I felt quiet. I felt clear, because I already knew who Apex Ventures was, and I knew it was my turn to speak. The room had devolved into a mess of tears and fury. Sophie was sobbing into her linen napkin, her face a wreck of smeared mascara. My whole life, you lied to us," she wept. Leo was on his feet, his chair overturned on the floor beside him. He was pointing a trembling finger at our father. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer. You tyrant." My mother was in the middle of it all, wringing her hands. "Please, please stop. It's Thanksgiving." "We're a family." "We're not a family," Leo shouted. "This isn't a family. This is a dictatorship." My father just stood there, a statue carved from disappointment. He had absorbed all of their rage, and it had finally made him look old. Into this cacophony I spoke. My voice wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was steady. "Mom, he's right." Everyone froze. The shouting ceased. The crying stopped. Leo's hand, still pointing at my father, just hung in the air. They all turned. They all looked at me. Me, Ava, the invisible girl at the end of the table, the one who never, ever got involved in family arguments, the one who just passed the bread. They stared at me as if I had just sprouted a second head. "What? What did you say, Ava?" my mother whispered. I didn't look at her. I didn't look at my whining, shattered siblings. I looked directly at my father. "He's right," I said again, my voice clear. "They don't deserve the company. They never did." Leo's face contorted. "You're taking his side?" Sophie looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. You nobody. You were always just jealous of us." I ignored them. I kept my gaze fixed on my father. He looked confused. He looked lost. I took a deep breath. This was the moment I had been planning for the last 6 months, the moment I had been working toward for the past decade. It was the perfect, simple question. "Dad," I said, my tone calm and reasonable, "are you certain Apex Ventures will protect your legacy?" My father blinked. He was thrown off balance. This was a business question. This was my world, not his family drama. "What?" he said, frowning. "Apex? Of course. They have an impeccable reputation. Their portfolio is strong. I've been in negotiations with their acquisition team for months. They've been nothing but professional." Why? He was a little dismissive. He couldn't help it. It was ingrained habit. "What do you know about it, Ava? Did you read about them in one of your finance blogs?" There it was, the last little jab, the last time he would ever underestimate me. Finance blogs? As if my entire career, my entire life was nothing more than a hobby. I didn't get angry. I didn't raise my voice. I had no need to. I thought about the last 4 years. I thought about the day I walked away from my secure, high-paying job. I thought about my tiny rented office with the flickering fluorescent light. I thought about the 100-hour weeks. I thought about the loneliness. I thought about the risk. I thought about the drive, the burning need to build something that was mine. I thought about the decision to create Apex Ventures, a holding company designed to acquire and grow the exact kind of businesses my father had built. Real businesses, American businesses. They all thought I was just Ava, the accountant. They had no idea. I looked at my father and I finally, completely told him the truth. "They have a good reputation," I said, my voice perfectly level, "because I built it." The silence that descended upon the room was a new kind of silence. It wasn't the heavy silence of anticipation. It wasn't the pained silence of shock. It was a sharp, electric, empty silence. The silence of a high-voltage power line snapping in a storm. My father just stared. I don't understand. What do you mean you built it?" Sophie's sobs had ended with a sharp, high-pitched gasp. Leo's mouth was hanging open. "What? What did you say?" he whispered. I said it again, clearly, directly. "I mean, I own Apex Ventures." I let the words land. I founded it 4 years ago. The $150 million offer? That was me. That was my letter of intent. That was my money. No one moved. No one breathed. My father was shaking his head slowly, in utter disbelief. No, that's not possible. I spoke with their president, a Mr. Davies. David Davies, I said. He's my COO, an excellent one. I hired him 2 years ago. We named the acquisition project Davies in his honor. It's my 12th acquisition, Dad. I saw them still staring. They still couldn't process it. It was too big. I was too small. I was just Ava. So I gave them the numbers, the things they could understand. You call it Apex Ventures, I said. That's the parent company. I started it with the money I earned from my own investments. I have partners. We manage over $340 million in assets, manufacturing, logistics, and timber. Sterling Woods is a perfect fit for our portfolio. Sophie just whispered, "No, no, no." Leo was doing the math again. His face was ashen. He hadn't just been disinherited. He had been completely and utterly outmaneuvered by his little sister, the boring one. My father's hands, which had always been so strong, were trembling. The heavy silver carving knife, the symbol of his authority at this table for 3 decades, slipped from his grasp. It clattered onto the china platter. The sound was deafening in the silent room. It was the sound of something breaking. It was the sound of everything changing. My father leaned on the table, his knuckles white. He looked at me, really looked at me. And for the first time in my entire life, I think he finally saw me. The sound of the knife hitting the platter was the only sound in the world. It was a loud, ugly clatter that seemed to echo in the sudden, absolute silence. My father's hand was still flat on the table, his knuckles white. He was staring at me, his face pale, as if all the blood had drained from it. He wasn't angry, he wasn't sad, he was just erased. "Ava," he whispered, his voice a dry rasp. "What? What did you say?" Clara was the first to find her voice. It came out as a high-pitched, mocking laugh that sounded like shattering glass. "Oh, come on," she said, looking around the table for allies. "Is this a joke? Is this your weird little sister revenge fantasy? What did you do, Ava? Get a job in their mailroom? You own Apex Ventures? Don't be ridiculous. You're Ava. You're just Ava." That was my entire life summed up in 3 words. I thought about all the years I had been just Ava. I thought about a Christmas 5 years ago. I was 27. I had just closed my first multi-million-dollar deal for the firm I worked for. It had been a complex, brutal 18-month-long battle. I had won. I received a bonus that was more than my father paid his top manager. I came home for Christmas, and I was so proud. I was bursting with it. We were all sitting in the living room. "I have some great news," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I just got a huge promotion. I'm a vice president now." "Oh, that's nice, dear," my mother had said, not looking up from her magazine. "VP, huh?" Leo said, tapping on his phone. "That's cool." "Hey, Dad, speaking of VPs, my new app just got me a meeting with a major VC firm. We're talking a $20 million valuation, pre-seed." "Now that's something, son," my father said, slapping him on the back. Clara had yawned. "Can we please not talk about whatever this is? I just got this new handbag from Milan I want to show you. My promotion, my victory, had been dismissed as whatever this is." I remember going to the guest room, sitting on the edge of the bed in the dark and not crying. I just sat there. I sat for an hour, and I made a decision. I would never again try to win their approval. I would never again ask for a seat at their table. I would buy the whole damn table. Now, at that very same table, Clara was still laughing. "You? But you work in finance, right? Like, at some bank? You wear sensible shoes." I turned my head and looked directly at her. I didn't smile. "No, Clara," I said, my voice cold and clear. "You're wrong. I don't work in finance." I let the words hang in the air. I looked at Leo. I looked at my mother. I looked at my father. "I am finance." I reached down to the leather satchel I had placed by my chair, a bag they had probably assumed was a cheap knockoff. It wasn't. I opened it. I pulled out a single leather-bound folder. It was a deep navy blue. It had 2 words embossed in silver on the cover: Apex Ventures. I slid it across the polished surface of the table. It came to a stop right in front of my father's plate. "What is this?" he said, his voice trembling. "That's my portfolio," I said. "Apex Ventures, founded by me 4 years ago, with my own capital and 2 partners I trust. We manage over $340 million in assets." Leo's face went white. He knew what those words meant. "You thought I was just Ava, the accountant," I said. "You thought I was sitting in a cubicle somewhere. I wasn't. I was building." I gestured to the folder. "Open it." My father's shaking hands fumbled with the cover. He opened it. The first page was a simple executive summary. "The textile mill in South Carolina?" I said. "That's mine." "The logistics hub in Georgia?" "Mine." "The 3 smaller lumber yards in Tennessee that you thought were your competition, Dad? They've been mine for 2 years. I was learning the business." "Your business?" Clara had her hand over her mouth. You're lying," she whispered. "This is a fantasy." "Turn the page, Dad," I said. He did. The next page was the letter of intent, the offer for Sterling Woods. "You've been negotiating with my team for 6 months," I said. "A Mr. Davies, you said." "David Davies. He's my chief operating officer. He's very good. I hired him from a firm in New York. We called this Project Davies in his honor." I looked right at my father. "Sterling Woods isn't just another acquisition, Dad. It's my 12th, and it's the one that matters the most." My father traced the signature line on the document with his finger. He looked from the paper to my face, back and forth. He was trying to connect the 2 realities, the daughter he had ignored and the CEO who was about to buy his company. Leo finally spoke. He wasn't angry, he wasn't jealous, he was just in awe. It was the awe of a man who builds apps suddenly finding himself at the base of a skyscraper. "My God, Ava," he whispered. It's all real." My father looked down at the folder. He looked up at me. His face was a mask of, I didn't know what. It was a "what have I done" sort of look. "Ava," he said, "why?" It was the only question that mattered. My father's why was quiet. It wasn't an accusation. It was a plea. He needed to understand. The entire world he had so carefully constructed was now inverted. The daughter he'd written off as a failure was the one holding all the cards. I looked at him. I looked at Leo, who was now slumped in his chair, his hands in his lap looking small. I looked at Sophie, who was watching me with a new, strange expression. It wasn't hatred. It was calculation. "Why, Dad?" I said. "Because of you." He flinched. "No," I said quickly. "Not in the way you think. This isn't about revenge." I paused. "Well, maybe a little, but that's not the reason." I took a breath. I had to make them understand. I had to tell them the truth I had kept locked away my entire life. "I was the only one who ever loved it," I said. My father frowned. "Loved what?" "The company," I said, my voice rising slightly. "The work. Sterling Woods. I loved it." I leaned forward. "Do you remember, Dad, when I was 8 years old? Before Leo was a genius and before Sophie was a beauty? You took me to the mill. It was a Saturday. Mom was angry. She said it was no place for a little girl. But you took me. You let me sit in the cab of your truck. You gave me a clipboard and a pencil. You showed me the blueprints for the new sorting facility. You said, 'Look, Ava, This is where the real work happens. This is how you build something real. You draw a line on a piece of paper, and then men and machines turn it into a place. My father's eyes widened. He remembered. I loved that day, I whispered. I loved the smell of the sawdust. I loved the roar of the saws. I loved how real it all was. I kept that blueprint, Dad. I still have it. It's framed in my office. I wanted to be just like you. I wanted to build. I glanced at Leo and Sophie, but then I wasn't the right one. Leo was the son. Sophie was the princess. And I was just the quiet one, the boring one, the one who was good with numbers. You sent me away, Dad. You told me it was no place for me. You told me to go help Mom with her garden parties. The old pain was there, a sharp, quick sting. So I did. I went away. I went to college on a scholarship. I got a job. I learned about money. I learned that money is its own kind of machine. It's its own kind of timber. It's the tool you use to build the things you want. And I learned from you. You built Sterling Woods. So I built Apex Ventures. I built it the exact same way. I started small. I worked 100-hour weeks. I took risks. I found good people. I earned it. I looked my father right in the eye. And that's the answer to your question. I used the line I had practiced in my head 1,000 times. Dad, I didn't want to inherit Sterling Woods. I wanted to earn it. The room was silent. Leo and Sophie, they wanted it as a gift, I said. They wanted the money. They wanted the brand name. They never wanted the work. I wanted the work. I'm the only one who ever did. And that's why I couldn't inherit it. I had to buy it. I had to earn it, just like you did. I looked at my mother. You and Dad can retire. That's why I offered full market value. That $150 million, it's yours. It's not for me. It's not for them. It's for you. So you can retire with dignity. So you can walk away with your head held high, knowing you got the best possible price for your life's work. I'm not here to steal your legacy, Dad. I'm here to preserve it. I slid the folder again, turned to the last page. My father did. It was a one-page summary. Apex Ventures will not be tearing Sterling Woods apart. We're not selling off the assets. We're investing. Your people will stay, I said, my voice strong and sure. Your foreman, Frank, the one you've trusted for 30 years, I'm promoting him to Regional Operations Manager. All 70 employees will have their benefits guaranteed. The Sterling name is staying on the sign. We're going to expand. We're going to use my logistics network to open up new markets in 3 states. Your legacy will live on, Dad. It just needed the right hands. I put my own hands flat on the table. They weren't soft like Sophie's. They weren't twitching for a phone like Leo's. They were still. It needed my hands. The atmosphere in the room had changed. The anger had dissipated. The shock was morphing into something else. Awe. Confusion. Leo was the first to speak. He looked like a child. He was just staring at me, his mouth slightly agape. So, he said, all this time you were out buying companies? The simplicity of his question was almost comical. He couldn't grasp the why. He was stuck on the what. Yes, Leo, I said. I was buying companies. Real companies with real balance sheets, not just ideas for apps. He flinched. He deserved that. Then Sophie spoke. Her voice was a whisper. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the folder, at the numbers, at the $340 million asset summary. You're worth hundreds of millions, she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a dawning realization. And in that moment, I saw her for who she truly was. She wasn't sad. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even jealous. She was interested. She was looking at me, her invisible sister, and she was calculating. She was reevaluating. A new, powerful, wealthy person had just materialized in her life. She was already figuring out how to use me, how to get a piece of this. It was the most honest and the most disgusting thing I had ever witnessed. "That's all you see, isn't it, Sophie?" I said, my voice full of a pity I didn't know I possessed. After everything I just said, after I talked about legacy and work and Dad, all you heard was the number. "You're still just counting the money." Her face flushed and she looked away. "That's not what matters," I said, my voice soft now. "It never was. The money is just a tool. It's the result of the work. It's not the point." I turned back to my father. He had been silent this whole time, listening, watching me with unblinking eyes. He was looking at the 8-year-old girl with the blueprint. He was looking at the 27-year-old VP he had ignored. He was looking at the 32-year-old CEO who had just bought his company. He was finally putting all the pieces together. My mother was crying softly. "Arthur," she whispered, "say something." My father stood up. He didn't look at my mother. He didn't look at Leo. He didn't look at Sophie. He looked at me. He walked around the table. He walked past his cowering son. He walked past his calculating daughter. He walked right up to my chair. At the far end of the table, the invisible end, he stood in front of me for a long moment. And then he put his hand on my shoulder. It wasn't the dismissive, "Go away, Ava" pat from my childhood. It was heavy. It was real. His eyes were glistening. His voice was thick. "You learned," he whispered. I didn't know what to say. "Dad." "You learned," he said again, his voice stronger. He glanced over his shoulder at Leo and Sophie. "You learned the one lesson, the only lesson I ever hoped one of you would." He looked back at me, his hand still on my shoulder. "You don't wait for your future, you don't ask for it, you don't expect it." He smiled, a real, true, proud smile, the first one he had ever given me. "You earn your future." And then he did something I never, ever could have predicted. He pulled out the chair next to mine. He sat down. He, the man who had sat at the head of this table for 3 decades, sat down next to me. He picked up his wine glass. He held it up, looking at me. "So," he said, his voice full of a new, light energy, "my new boss." The power had shifted. The world had turned. What's our first move? Thanksgiving ended. Not with hugs or apologies. It ended with a quiet, strange, and stunned work session. My father and I sat at the dining room table as the turkey grew cold, and we went through the company's books. My mother, for the first time, sat with us and just listened. Leo and Sophie, they simply vanished. They went upstairs broken. The next few months were not easy. The deal closed, a formal legal process. I was the CEO of Apex Ventures. My father was the seller. We were professional. But the family, that was harder. My first day at the mill as the new owner, I didn't go to the head office. I went to the yard at 6 a.m. and found Frank, the foreman. He was a big man with a face like a knotted piece of oak. He looked at me, suspicious. "You're Mr. Sterling's daughter," he said. "The quiet one." "I am," I said. "And I'm also your new boss. My name is Ava." He just grunted. "I'm promoting you," I said. "Regional Operations Manager, a 30% raise. You'll oversee this yard and the 3 I own in Tennessee." He just stared at me. "Why?" he asked. "Because you've been running this place for 20 years, I said. "My father may have owned the company, but you know it. I'm not stupid. I pay for value, and you're the most valuable asset here." He didn't smile, but his shoulders relaxed. "Okay, boss," he said. "What's our first move?" I smiled. "You'd get along with my dad." Leo hit rock bottom 2 months later. His startup didn't just fail, it imploded. He had debts. He had no legacy to fall back on. He was 39 years old and broke. He called me. It was the hardest call of his life. I could hear it in his voice. "Ava," he said, "it's Leo." "Hi, Leo." "I messed up," he whispered. I don't know what to do." I was silent. "Ava, I'll do anything," he said, his voice cracking. "I'll sweep the floors. I just need a job. A real one." I thought about it. I could have said no. I could have told him to earn his future. "Okay," I said. "Be at the Denver office. Monday, 6 a.m. You'll report to Frank. He's managing our new logistics chain." "Frank? The foreman?" "The operations manager," I corrected. "And Leo. You won't be sweeping floors." "Oh," he said, relieved. "You'll be loading the trucks. Welcome to the ground floor. Don't be late." I hung up. He was there at 5:45 a.m. He works for me now. He hates it. But for the first time in his life, he's proud, he's tired, and he's learning. Sophie was different. She didn't beg. She is my father's daughter, in her own way. She came to my new office, a large glass building in downtown Denver. She looked around. "Ava, darling," she said, "this place is so masculine, so gray." "It's an office, Sophie, not an art gallery." "It's a brand, Ava," she said, just like she used to. "And your brand is boring." I leaned back in my chair. And I can fix it," she said. She placed a portfolio on my desk. It was filled with designs for my offices, for my new projects. It was brilliant, it was clean, it was strong. "I need a design consultant for my new commercial projects," I said. Her eyes lit up. "I'll take it." "Not so fast," I said. "Draw up a proposal, a budget, a timeline. Pitch it to my COO, Mr. Davies. If your numbers are good and your work is on time, you'll get the contract. Just like any other vendor." Her face fell. "A vendor? But I'm your sister." "That's why you have to be better than everyone else," I said. "I can't have anyone thinking I'm giving my family a handout." She hated it. But she did it. She won the contract. Her design firm is now in charge of all of Apex's commercial projects. She's stressed. She's working 80-hour weeks, and she's good. My father? He took on an advisory role. He walks the mill yard, telling stories to the younger guys. He and my mother just got back from Italy. They send me postcards. My father writes on them, "This is good." But the woodworking here is terrible. Our family dynamic shifted. The old, heavy entitlement was gone, replaced by a new, tired, stressed-out purpose. We were a family not of heirs, but of employees, and I was the one signing the paychecks. 1 year later, I hosted Thanksgiving, not at the old, dark, heavy house. It was at my home in Denver, a modern house with high ceilings and a lot of glass. The table was smaller, the air was warmer. I was at the head of the table. I was the one carving the turkey. Leo was there. He looked tired, but his hands were strong. He was sitting next to Frank, the foreman, and they were arguing, laughing, about a new logistics software I'd forced them to install. "It's too digital, boss," Frank was saying to me, and Leo was defending it. "No, Frank, you're just analog," Leo said, and they both laughed. Sophie was there. She was showing my mother pictures on her iPad. Not of shoes, but of a hotel lobby she had just finished. "They hated the lighting, Mom," she was saying, "but I made them see it. I told them, I'm the expert. Trust me," and they did. She looked happy, exhausted, but happy. My mother and father were at the other end. They looked light. The burden of the legacy was gone. They were just Arthur and Eleanor. They were talking about a trip to Spain. They looked young. My father stood up, a wine glass in his hand. The room went quiet, but it was a good, warm quiet. He looked around the table, at Leo, at Sophie, at my mother. Then he looked at me. "I'm not a man for many words," he said, his voice thick. You all know that." He raised his glass. "I spent 30 years of my life Wrong. I thought I had to protect my legacy. I thought I had to give it to someone. He shook his head. I didn't realize I was raising it. His eyes were on me. There was no apology. There was just pride. A deep, quiet, solid pride. To Ava, he said, his voice strong. The best builder I have ever known. The reason the Sterling name still means something. To Ava, everyone echoed. My eyes were stinging. I stood up. I raised my own glass. I looked at all of them. My new family. To family, I said. This thing we built together. Out of the wreckage of the old one. I looked at Leo. I looked at Sophie. I looked at my father. To a family that learns to build, not just inherit. This time, everyone clinked glasses in unison. I looked at my father, and I saw my own eyes reflected in his. The girl who was once overlooked, sitting at the far end of the table, was now the one holding it all together. I sat down. I took a bite of turkey. It was pretty perfect. And for the first time in my life, I was finally truly home.